Hi everyone, I hope you're all well out there. My name is Jeff and behind me is Anne, and today I want to show you how I made this really interesting bowl. Welcome to Rocket Rose Art. The project today I think you'll love. It's a little more challenging than a lot of the other ones I've done, but the end result is absolutely amazing. Now this project does use a number of techniques. We effectively make a couple of part sheets. We use a ring saw for cutting some circles. At the end we actually drape the piece over a mould. Now if you like the video and you'd like to see more, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and if you've got any questions about this project, please ask them in the comments below and I will definitely get to answer them. Now hang around to the end. There are a couple of things that I would like to talk about as far as this bowl is concerned. And there is a little surprise that surprised me and it will surprise you. And we'll talk about that and how to avoid it. As usual, the glass I'm using today is bullseye glass. It is 3 mils thick and the colours are 0125, which is orange, and 0164, which is Egyptian blue. Now I need 2 circles, one of the blue, one of the orange, and I did have a piece of the Egyptian blue that had been broken, and I've managed to cut a circle out of that. A little bit missing, doesn't matter, as you'll see later on. Now I have to cut a circle out of the orange, and there's a few ways of doing that. You could use something like one of these, which is a circle cutter. You could mark it and freehand it all the way around, but today I'm going to use my Taurus ring saw to cut this circle out. Now to cut this on a ring saw, you need to stick on a guide, which is this little piece here. This is double-sided tape. So what I need to do is I need to get that in the center, that on top. So the best way is to simply find the center of the circle here. It only has to be roughly the center. And because this circle has to be 23 centimeters in diameter, this one was 22, I just need to make sure that I'm going to have enough clearance on the sides and I'm not going to have a flat spot or something. Being 23, therefore I need to make sure I've got 11.5 centimeters, which I have each way. Plenty. Now I need to stick this on there and then this on the top of it and keep this centered. So the way I do that, peel the sticky tape off of that, and I roughly center it over my marks, keeping the corners as close as I can to the lines I've drawn on there. Then I take my guide here and peel this off and take that, and by eye I know a little bit out. There we go. Press her on. Now I need to have a mark at the side here for my ring saw, because what I'm going to do is I've got to cut in from the edge up to the circumference of the circle, and then I'll put it on, you'll see me, I'll put it on the machine and we'll do the cut around. So what I need is I need 11.5 from the center of that out to the edge. So I'll just line that up and I'll make a mark there. So that gives me my guide that I'll cut into. And something I forgot to mention, to keep that mark on there, because as soon as I get in onto the ring saw, which is water fed, that'll wash straight off. I'd stick a little bit of sticky tape over it, and that'll keep it pretty much where I want it. And as usual, I will double check. Perfect. So I'm over on the ring saw now, and it is a little echoey in here, so please forgive that. It's just a small room. What I'm going to try and do is explain how this works on the ring saw, how I can cut a disc on the ring saw. The way it works is this little guide here, this little lug here on the guide needs to sit into one of the holes on this grid at the correct distance from the blade here, which is the radius of the circle. Now, and then once that's in place, I'll put that down there, you can see I can rotate that and make my cut. Now to get that in the right position, in the right hole, what I have to do is I have to cut in from the edge almost up to my mark, maybe a mil and a half away from my mark. And that gives me a groove as a guide. Then I turn this over and I put my blade back in that groove, back to the position it was, so that I now know it's at the right radius from that there. I move this around until I find the right hole for it to sit in, so that I can then continue and make my cut. Now, because I have to get kitted out, I wear an apron, I wear a mask, and I wear earmuffs. I'll go away, I'll get kitted out, and then I'll come back and I'll show you making the cut. That's our circle cut. Now I've just got to get that off. And believe me, it does stick. And sometimes this is a bit of a challenge, but basically the idea is I've got a blade here, and that's just out of a Stanley knife. And if you can get one that's got a little ridge along here, much better. But I'll try to do it from this side so you can see. I just basically put that under and keep working that underneath there until I loosen it up and I can get it off. It takes a little bit. As I said, sometimes this can be a bit of a challenge. For some reason or other it really sticks sometimes. You don't want to leave with a little guide because you will break it. Here we go. And then I have to do the same with that and get that off. I'm not going to show you that because if I cut myself, you'll see some blood. So I get that off. This usually just rubs off because it is only contact glue. So you can see it's just rubbing off there. So you don't need to use any chemicals to get it off or anything like that. Anyway, I'll clean this up and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. So there's my disc. I've cleaned it all up and it is sitting on a couple of pieces of glass underneath, so it makes it easier for me to pick it up. Now that's just plain orange, but I don't want it plain orange. I want a bit of a pattern in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Egyptian blue Frit. I'm going to cover it over that, and then I'm just going to play around with it a bit to get a bit of a pattern. Now Egyptian blue and orange can react, so in the kiln I'm not sure how this is going to turn out because they can react, but one thing's for sure, it's not going to be plain orange. Now I've got to put a mask on to do this, so I'll get my mask on and then I'll come back and I won't be talking while I'm doing it. So that's all done. It may look like a bit of a mess at the moment, but I'm hoping that when it comes out of the kiln it won't look like a mess anymore. It'll be a very interesting pattern with the reactive colours, the Egyptian blue and the orange. You don't really know what's going to happen. It could look great, it could just turn into a bit of a smudge of brown or something like that, but it's always interesting to do. So I always look forward to pulling this out of the kiln. Now I'll get this over onto a kiln shelf, I'll clean up and I'll get it into the kiln tonight, and tomorrow morning we'll be able to have a look and see what the end result is. Well everyone, what do you think? To me, it's better than what I expected. You can see that using a really simple technique with a brush, how you can get a really nice pattern. You can almost see brush marks here. And where you see the richer blue, that's where you would have noticed when I was working with this, the piles of Frit. You need to do that when you've got something reactive like this, because you can see the dark reaction between the Egyptian blue and the orange. If you didn't have something like that, you would end up with more of just a brown mess. And to get that nice contrast between the Egyptian blue and the orange, make sure you put plenty of Frit in parts, because where it's thin, and it reacts. As you can see, it's just turned that almost a brown colour. Now that's that side. We have to turn this over now and deal with the other side, and I'll show you how to do that. Now, as far as the blue is concerned, I have to cut this into what I would call wavy wedges. Now I've cleaned this all up, and I now am going to take my cutter. I'm going to score where I would normally score from the center. This is a bit off center, but that's not a problem. I'm going to score outwards and score a series of what I would call wavy wedges all the way around here. Then I'll snap all those, keep it all together, so I keep the pattern together. And once I've done all that, I will then take some of the scrap and I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces. And then after all of that, I'll make sure it's all clean, and then I'll come back and we'll assemble it. Got a bit of a bubble in there, so hopefully it'll score and snap properly. You may notice what I'm doing is keeping it in pairs, scoring it in the middle, doing each piece in the middle, then go back and do the next one in the middle. Don't try and run it around in sequence. You could possibly end up with more broken pieces. Not that it's a big deal having broken pieces in this, but if you can, try and avoid it. There you go, we broke it. Let's try it this way, and if we're very lucky, there we go. You'll see in the pattern that's not really going to be a problem once we put it all together. Now I'll go away and I'll just cut up a whole heap of bits and pieces because it's going to take some time, and I'll clean it all and then I'll be back. I'll just explain now what we have here before I start assembling this. On the kiln shelf here I have a piece of thin fire paper. What I've done is I've taken the original piece that we made up before, I've put that on the paper and I have drawn a circle around it. And then 10 mils in from that I have roughed out another circle, and 10 mils out from that I have roughed out another circle. Now over here we have all of our small pieces of Egyptian blue that we've cut up. They've all been cleaned. This is our original piece over here, again that's been cleaned, and these are our little wavy wedges, and again that's all been cleaned and ready to go. So to assemble this, I'll readjust the camera so it zooms in on this area a bit better, and then I'll show you how I set this up. The first step in assembling this is to lay up all of these little pieces of Egyptian blue within this inner and outer circle. Now each piece should overlap that middle circle there, which is the circumference of our orange piece over there. And what I want you to do is to put any pointy pieces towards the middle, and on the outside edge here have the more flat edges. So we don't want too many pointy edges on the outside here. It keep it fairly random, space them around however you like, pick and choose your pieces, and that's just going to take time. So it's going to take me a while to do it, so I'll do all of that and then I'll come back and show you what I've done. Now in this next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this original orange piece over here that we made, and I'm going to set that down on all those little pieces, face down, so the pattern side down. To help with that, I'm going to put a little bit of glue around on some of these pieces. I'm going to gently set it on there and hopefully it'll stay in place. And then we'll go on and do the next step. Now the last step before this goes in the kiln is the tricky one. We have to move all of those little wavy wedges over onto here and push them out, so we end up with spaces between all the wedges. Now remember, the blue disc is slightly smaller than this one, and we've made it smaller so that we can push all the pieces out and hopefully get enough gap between each piece so that the colour behind will show even after the reaction takes place. Now this is fiddly because it takes me time to put it in, fiddle them all around, get them into the right position. So again, I'll do all of that and then we'll come back. That's it. We're all set up, ready for the kiln. Now I'll very gingerly take this over and put it in the kiln, and we'll fuse it up to a high tack fuse, and after that I'll come back and show you the result of that. Well, I'm back and the piece is out of the kiln, as you can see, and it's turned out really nice. We've got that nice textured edge all around there. Because we didn't full fuse this, we've only done like a high tack fuse, what I call a high tack fuse anyway. We've got that nice texture, those raised pieces in there. Not so much reaction in this one, but I still like that. I think I love the contrast between the colours. And doing the pieces underneath gives us, again, it just wouldn't be the same without that. We just have a nice round edge, so with that it gives us some nice organic texture. So what we're going to do now is, this is the slump mould we're going to use, or I should say drape mould, and I'm going to drape that over that mould with this on the inside. So this will be our outside, this will be the inside, and hopefully that's all going to go well. I'll hang around, so I'll get it all into the kiln and get it underway, and then I'll be back and show you our final piece. I hope you agree with me in that the bowl has turned out really nice. And by the way, Anne is in the background making some rings, and I do have some workers outside, so that we may get a little bit of noise. It's turned out nice, but there has been a little problem. But before I show you that, just a couple of words about the techniques here. This technique on the back here, which gives you these raised areas and the channels in the middle, you can see that you could use that in many different projects, bowls, platters and so forth. The one for the inside, which was like a part sheet that used Frit, again same sort of thing, as well as the one around the edge here where you can see I used some small pieces. Again, that could be used in a project all on its own. Now, while it looks nice, there is a little problem. You can see here it's actually cracked during the draping process. Now that's my fault, because I wasn't watching the draping process as I should have been. I left it a bit too late before I come back to it. You should watch it when it begins, not later on. Now what's happened is it's draped, you can see here it's draped really nicely around here, but there it folded over more than I wanted it to. Now the reason it's folded over, don't ask me, I have no idea, but what I should have done is early in the piece I should have gently teased this to drape correctly. I would have done that with a small piece of doweling, not a small piece, a long piece of doweling, into the kiln and just a little bit of pressure where I wanted it to drape down. Fortunately, I got sidetracked and left it too late. Once that starts, you're not going to be able to stop it. At least I know no way of stopping it. So I think it doesn't really take away from the piece. The piece is sufficiently unique enough and organic enough that even having that in there is not going to stop you from using a bowl for fruit or something along those lines. Obviously you can't use soup. So I don't think it's taken away from it too much. The break is not sharp. It has rounded in the process, so it's not going to be a danger to anybody. And I don't believe it's changed the integrity of the piece. I think it's fine. Now, hopefully, if you give this a go, you won't have this problem. But I'd be interested to know if you do give it a go. Anyway, if you want to watch a couple of more videos, don't forget you'll find suggested videos up here somewhere. And don't forget to subscribe down the bottom. And again, any more questions, ask them in the comments and I will answer them. So I'll have to say bye for now.